Objection sustained. Your hosts, Karen Klaus and former Bexar County District Attorney Nico Jorge.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is Sidebar. As a reminder, we always ask if you go to sidebartv.com. You can get on social media to watch during the show live. And, of course, join us for the after show because that's when we continue the conversation and things get ugly. No, they don't get ugly. It's just a lot of fun.
We get honest.
Right. We get honest, and there's more time for us to look at your comments and just get a feel for what you want to talk about. Also, you can consider becoming a contributor. That's at sidebartv.com. I feel bad because I'm not saying I was totally checked out this week, but some of the items as I was looking at the news from this past week, I was thinking, well, we've got to talk about President Trump's new trade deals. And the reason I asked that is because depending on what you read, it was the absolute worst thing and such a loser plan, and everything is, everything that he does is just bad. But maybe you can answer questions about why it may be a game changer, why it's good. Also, I still have a lot of questions about what's going on in Gaza and why is it a humanitarian crisis? What's going on there? You see these giant piles of food that the UN has, and it's just staying there, and people are going hungry. And then the final one, big question mark over my head, but not really. New York has some of the toughest gun laws in the country, but there was a mass shooting in Midtown Manhattan. Now, of course, the gun safety advocates are saying, well, maybe all those regulations can only accomplish so much. But that it continues to be a conversation no matter what the laws are for them. But every week, if you have just joined us for the very first time, you come here and you'll hear the former Bexar County District Attorney Nico Jorge, trial lawyer, managing partner of LaHood Norton Law Group, and George Araujo, scholar, former chemist, and pharmaceutical researcher and director. And before we start, I just wanted to congratulate you, Nico, and your law firm, because I was looking at the San Antonio Current, and they have that 2025 Best of San Antonio Readers' Choice Awards, and LaHood Norton Law Firm won Best Criminal Defense Attorney or Firm. Wow, that is incredible.
Thank you. Well, it was surprising to us. We didn't know. It's not like you put in for it.
Right, you
it's
can't.
Kind of the readers, it's just, and we were humbled by it. We were honored by it. I want to brag on the team. I mean, like I told you, I work with some of the best lawyers in our profession. Everyone but one were prosecutors with me when I was district attorney, so we bring that aspect to our clients. Of prosecutors, former prosecutors, we understand how the system works. We understand how prosecutors
I'm so glad that you say that, because when you say, well, we were all prosecutors, okay, so what? That's a lawyer. A lawyer's a lawyer, but you learn kind of like the game plan for the other side.
But you understand the mindset and what you're trying to do to build up a case, how you work with the 46, 48 law enforcement agencies, how the system works, how to navigate through that, what they need to prove a case, where there's weaknesses, can they really provide this evidence, what evidence do they really need to prove this element of a crime, and so, an allegation. So that we bring that aspect to it. And when we work hard training the lawyers, Gary and Jasmine in our firm are amazing trial lawyers. Jason, of course, one of my law partners, Jay, my other law partner, and Patrick, our George in the firm, he's our brainiac. David Shear, he does a lot of our federal work, and then our support staff. I mean, our paralegals. I mean, we don't run without the whole team. It's not just us. It's us. It's us. I mean, it's not just the lawyers. It's us. It's all of us. And so, what a humbling acknowledgement and recognition.
Amazing.
And so, we were very proud of it, humbled by it. But the thing that I'm most proud of, aside from just the knowledge that we have in our firm and our experience, is the culture. And we really celebrate wins for clients. We really celebrate because knowing that what we do and how we do it affects their lives and their children's lives and their children's lives. So, yeah, it's a great acknowledgement, and we're very proud of it.
It's so funny because it may sound like a dumb question, but maybe somebody wants the answer to this question. I've been asked several times about you is, what kind of law does he do? And so I know that's such a broad question, but have you been asked that type of question?
We're criminal defense lawyers. I mean, we do federal and state work. Anything you can be arrested for or investigated for, we do. And so anytime you can do time or be separated from your family, we do those. That's kind of our specialty, so to speak. We do have a civil lawyer of counsel. He's excellent, Brian. He does great civil work, and so when people have civil issues, contract disputes, I mean, he handles that, and we overlook it as litigators, but Brian's excellent. And we're looking to expand into family law and stuff like that because there's a demand for it. But I won't compromise the quality and the level of work that I want the quality we do on the criminal side for a family law lawyer and things of that nature. So we refer those out and things like that. We can direct people in any direction, but I'm looking to, God willing, expand and do different things in this next coming up year as we finish off this year.
George, you're about to finish law school, aren't you?
I'll take him. I'll take George for sure.
He could probably finish in about
Patrick.
a weekend.
Yeah.
So
2 weekends.
have you ever thought about going to law school seriously?
It's a yet unfulfilled, dream.
Well,
I mean,
there you go. I knew it.
First
I knew
on
it.
Sidebar, you heard it.
There's just no time. I mean, I finished a graduate degree a couple of years now in December of 2020, and it just about killed me.
We all remember.
Just because you did a 4-year degree in 2 years.
1 year,
That's why,
in 1 weekend.
Impatience is a virtue.
Yeah, well.
I mean, but there's just not enough time. It's just really, really hard to do it right. I mean, and law school. Are you kidding me? If you do it right. I mean, look at this guy here. You graduated in the top
100%.
So stupid. Every time he says that, it's.
But I was top 10% litigator.
That is so bad. I'm going to use that from now on.
I love it. This is how we do it around here, baby.
All right, thank you, Karen.
Well, here we got to talk about the law and the gun laws because that is a topic that just won't go away when it comes to the Democrats. They always want to fix the law instead of maybe the people. I can't remember who was it that said something like, "We got to fix the crazies."
I've never understood blaming an object for the people that use the object. We don't do that in any other situation in our society. I'm a passionate Second Amendment defender. I mean, I believe in responsible gun ownership and carrying a gun responsibly. Train with your gun. I always say, and tell this to George, he hears me all the time, and anyone around me. If you don't train with your weapon, then don't carry it. Carry a hammer because you could be a danger to yourself and others. It is dangerous, but so is a vehicle. Mm-hmm. So is irresponsibly using alcohol. More people die from vehicular deaths than guns. And that includes suicide, by the way. That's not what we're really looking at. That's unfortunate, but that's not what we're really afraid of as a society, so to speak. And then when you look at alcohol-related incidents, I mean, there was 1 year I looked it up when I was in office. I mean, it was almost 3 times of alcohol-related deaths versus gun-related deaths, and that included suicide once again. But no one's thinking of banning alcohol. No one's thinking of banning vehicles. And if you want to stop vehicular deaths, you change the speed limit. You change it to 30 miles an hour. If everybody and cars were not allowed to drive more than 30 miles an hour, even if you were drunk, you probably wouldn't kill many people. You just wouldn't unless you. But no one's talking like this. It's only with weapons, and you have to ask why. And so you look at New York, who has one of the strictest gun laws, and then you have some demented evil person just stroll on into a building and murder people.
How does that happen?
Well, it just happens because you allow it, so to speak. But also there's a moral compass to this that no one wants to talk about. There's a mental health aspect to this that no one wants to talk about. There's an over-medication to this issue that no one wants to talk about. And I'm talking about SSRI drugs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and the abuse of them. I'm not saying there's never a need for them. I'm just saying when you look at mass shootings, and by the way, this is considered a mass shooting, right? Over 4, it's considered a mass shooting. Yeah. And it's tragic and it's horrible. And the first things that people on the left can talk about are guns instead of the person and the loss that happened, the new normal in these people's lives that I've experienced personally and that I deal with professionally. And so it really irritates me when people go to the object instead of the circumstance around the object. And that's their MO. That's their.
Not to mention this, that they talked about the skin color of the person.
Well, did you see a CNN report possibly white? How would you possibly call that guy white? I mean, if the picture was out there available right away. I mean, this is disgusting from any media outlet. They will distort the facts to prove and to push a narrative. You're by definition not needed. You're not a media. To me, I mean, you have an agenda, and just acknowledge you have an agenda, and then advocate for your agenda. But don't try to dress yourself up as some media journalist outlet when you're doing stuff like that.
I think a theme in some of the things we're going to discuss today is how you can be winning a war on so many important fronts, but be losing a PR war.
Wow, that's
and overall be losing ground in what you're trying to achieve. And I think, unfortunately, conservatives have lost a lot of ground on this issue, and I don't think it's very hard.
On gun?
On what's really going on. I like how you started it by doing sort of a comparison. In other words, there's a lot of things to be outraged about legitimately in terms of people losing their lives in the country. And gun deaths is just simply not on any credible radar. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look, and I look to see what is the latest release of the most comprehensive data on all-cause mortality in the United States? It was printed in December of 2024, and it's actually data from 2022. With a little caveat in the data that says there's no reason to believe at this point that anything changed markedly in 2023. So in 2022, the all-cause mortality data, top 10 deaths according to the CDC, it's the most comprehensive. It's like a 117-page report. It's called the National Vital Statistics Report, and it's 117 pages, by the way. I went right to the tables because I wanted to see the brass tacks, and it was something like 3.27 million deaths in the United States. And you know what these are. The number one cause of death in the United States is diseases of the heart, heart disease.
Then cancer.
Followed by cancer. And the way they describe it is, malignant neoplasms is the second cause of death in the United States. The third cause, interestingly, is unintentional injuries, accidents, unintentional injuries. And then it goes on to...
Well, is that including vehicular?
Yeah, it does. But then it goes on to COVID-19 and cerebrovascular diseases and chronic lower respiratory disease, et cetera. You go to the top 10. There's nothing in there about guns explicitly. So where this is buried is in accidental injuries. Right. If you go into accidental injuries, only 0.2% are gun-related. Intentional, obviously, by definition, aren't even in there. So intentional homicides, mass shootings. By the way, there's ambiguity around how we should define that. But yes, that's one of those definitions. That's not even in the top 10 radar. By the time you get to number 11, you have this all other causes. And when you go into all other causes, which is nowhere in the top 10, homicides show up at about 2.5%. In other words, it's non-existent. In terms of the kinds of things we ought to be outraged about. Why are we losing a PR war on this? There's another agenda behind it, and we should expose it.
Okay, we are going to take a break, but remember, go to sidebartv.com. Join us online also. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
With reputations as respected high-level prosecutors in Bexar County, the attorneys of LaHood Norton Law Group bring invaluable practical knowledge from the other side of the aisle, using over 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome.
I'm Nico LaHood with LaHood Norton Law Group. Have you been arrested or accused of a crime? The LaHood Norton Law Group has the knowledge to defend you regardless of how small or large your case. In Bexar County, anywhere in the state, or even nationwide, we have the knowledge to defend you in federal or state court, no matter how small or large your case. We are trial lawyers with proven success.
Using their 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate for their clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome. The LaHood Norton Law Group. For a free consultation, call today, 210-797-7700. 210-797-7700. LaHoodNorton.com.
This is Nico LaHood. If you or a loved one has been arrested or accused of a crime, we can help.
LaHoodNorton.com.
1200 WOAI. Darn, I hate those commercials. Oh, no, it was yours. Nico, I'm sorry. It was your commercial. But it makes me crazy because when I get a chance to ask you both a question, I'm like, wait a second. You got to go back and explain to me about these accidental deaths. And could you just please go over those numbers again?
This is important stuff, George. Because here's the problem with this discussion and this argument from the other side, the anti-gun people. You want to talk about anti-vaxxers, anti-this. Well, these are people who are anti-gun. They truly are. And they don't really care about, I shouldn't say, I don't want to speak for their heart, but they just don't have the data behind it. So this is important. When I bring up issues or points of discussion and George digs into the data, this is critical. This is the kind of stuff that if we were trying the gun violence issue before an objective jury, this is the kind of stuff George would be called as my expert. We dissect into the data, and he's looking at why do we spend so much time talking about an issue that, of course, when you lose somebody to violence that happened to be with a weapon, intentional, then it's horrible. My brother was murdered, so I'm not speaking from ignorance. I'm speaking, I've walked the road. My parents have walked the road. My younger brother has walked the road. But when you look at the objective data and we take all emotion out of it, homicides are on number 11. George just told me, this is what I gathered, is number 11 on all cause mortality.
Other causes.
And it's under all other causes. It doesn't even have its own category. And under all other causes as number 11, it's 2.5% of all other causes. So think about how that would be on
Crazy small.
a bigger scale of data. So George, go back. Karen had a question for you.
Again, you can refer. You guys can, because we don't. I mean, it's a 117-page report. We can't all cover it here.
have you for that.
But table 1 on the report is what's of import because it lists the leading causes of death, and then the reason why there's dozens of tables is because it breaks it down by origin, demographic, sex, age, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're looking at it holistically on aggregate, there's 3.279 and change million deaths total in the United States by the end of 2022. Again,
So
this was printed.
3.7 million all deaths.
Yeah, about 3.3 million deaths. Yes, cumulatively. And so the number 1 cause of death is diseases of the heart. And I'm reading it from the report. This is the National Vital Statistics Report put out by the CDC, volume 73, number 10, and it was printed December 9th of 2024. And you can look this up and read through the table. And so the number 1 cause of death is diseases of the heart, and
Which
the
is
second
preventable,
one,
by the
which is
way.
cardiac, of course. And then the next is cancer, and it's listed as malignant neoplasms. And then the third cause of death is accidents. It's a bit of a catch-all. It's unintentional, and it's clarified. Accidents, unintentional injuries. And those constitute about just under 7% of total deaths. And when you look at those, firearm-related unintentionalities are 0.2%.
Hold on, but 0.2 of the 7%.
That is correct.
Yes.
Not 0.2 of all
100%.
deaths. Not 0.2 of the 3.3 million.
Right.
0.2 of the 7% of the 3.3 million.
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
So making sure.
And so now you just keep on going. You get into COVID and you get into cerebrovascular diseases, et cetera. And you get down to number 11, or number 10. Number 10 is chronic liver disease and cirrhosis. And then they just stop. They just say, look, all other causes hereafter. Under all other causes, you will find homicides and firearm-related deaths that are not accidental. And of that bucket, it's 2.5%. And so if we're going to talk about, as you see all of the posturing, particularly and almost exclusively from Democrat politicians and Democrat gun-grabbing activist organizations, okay, and I would throw a lot of university so-called think tanks because it's been gutted by the left, which is why Trump's work on DEI is so critical. As you get into a conversation with people, I think it's a legitimate question, Nico. If we're concerned about the loss of life, explain to me why we're not outraged about the things that are driving it and why we're focusing on this. Legitimate question.
So, but does the data show that out of those 2.5% of homicide deaths from the number 11th cause under all other causes, I guess, does it distinguish suicide versus homicide?
I was just going to ask that.
A significant portion of that is suicide-related.
So
that is correct.
And,
I know those numbers.
even though that's tragic, it's horrible,
Yes.
it's tragic.
I know where
we
you're
need
going
to
with
address
this.
why
Legitimate.
someone wants to do that to themselves, but that's not the issue that happened in New York. I mean, he committed
Correct.
suicide in the end, and which many of these cowards do, but that's not the person the person by themselves that only wants to harm themselves versus others and
Yes.
then themselves. That's a different type of suicide issue than this.
Excellent. And so from a causative perspective,
Right.
in terms of loss of life, which matters,
Yeah.
in terms of what drives our outrage, what drives ultimately policy, it's a legitimate question. Why are we talking about this? It's not that it isn't important, but people are losing their lives by the bucket loads, and I don't hear anything about that. Where's the outrage?
Is
And so-
vehicular, where are vehicular incidents in this?
well, you were right. I think that's going to be under accidents.
Under accidents, got it.
Under
Okay, got
accidents.
it. And which is the third cause?
Yes, that's right. It's in that
And
umbrella.
only 0.2% of the 7, only 0.2% is guns, and then so that leaves accidents as mainly vehicular. That's my
and
point.
you can look these up. Total number of in 2022, total number of vehicular deaths in the United States. The total number of accidental deaths per the National Vital Statistics reports that I'm referring to is around 227,000 deaths for the year, which is about that 7%. And in there are these vehicular deaths.
Yeah. Which
And so-
they trounce on gun-related
Right.
deaths, right? And then alcohol-related,
Sure.
which alcohol and vehicular
Yeah.
can overlap a little
Yeah.
bit. But many people pass away from vehicular deaths that are not related to alcohol or
But the
drugs.
sad reality is the Democrats are selling something and people are buying it. and so that's why it continues.
Well, drama
Otherwise,
sells, emotion sells, and this is going to kind of trickle into the Gaza situation with the starvation stuff debate. But it's emotional. I mean,
we really should cut to the chase, and we've talked about it here. Sorry to interrupt you, because
it's okay.
this is so important. what's the driver then? What's the impetus behind this? What's the political objective? What's the deal here?
On guns?
Yes. What's the agenda?
Take away the power from the people.
Exactly.
I mean, the Second Amendment is right after the First, which protects your right to think and to speak and to worship and all that stuff. And then Third Amendment is for people not to, for armies not to be inside of your home. I was trying to think of a word. I couldn't think of it. I was going to say something else, so I stopped myself. And, and the Fourth Amendment is unreasonable searches and seizures. So you got to think about the importance of these. And when you look at other countries, this is my opinion, but I think it's objectively can be supported. When you look at other countries, the countries that have lost their rights, they have stripped their guns.
This is the imposition of communism in the United States that we've been so concerned about here. We've been talking about it first of all, from a censorship perspective, from an ideological carving in the United States, changing the sort of the American pillars, right, of the autonomy of the individual to state-controlled power. And this, I just want to point this out to people. A lot of what we talked about has been strictly rhetorical in the United States. Praise the Lord. But ultimately, it gets hot on the streets. This is where communism goes. The very first thing that a communist regime does, and this is historically inarguable in the 20th century, the very first thing a communist regime does once it is implemented is to confiscate guns from the population. Right. You go back to the number one butcher, the others pale in comparison, Mao Zedong in the 20th century. By the time he exacted full control, Nico, in China in 1949, it was a 14-year process starting in 1935. And this wasn't a mystery. Every province of China that he went to, the very first thing is he would take away guns, and if people resisted, he would execute them. This is a fact of life. I want to quote him, by the way, in case you're wondering where he's coming from. Quote, "All political power comes from the barrel of a gun. The Communist Party must command all the guns. That way, no guns can ever be used to command the party." End of quote. This is an idea.
Quote is from whom?
Mao Zedong.
Yeah.
65 million people dead in China by the time he was done. He makes Hitler and Stalin combined look like child's play. And yet it's exactly what Hitler did in 1938 before he started exterminating Jews. And exterminating Jews he did, by the way. You really want to talk about genocide and study genocide? Go look at the extermination of half the Jewish population in the 1930s and 1940s. I know it's really inconvenient these days when we talk about Israel, but it is a matter of historical fact. What's the first thing that Hitler did, Nico? Is he removed all the guns from the Jewish population and began exterminating them. Kristallnacht followed. This was in 1938. Look up Kristallnacht, which proceeded from there, and then, of course, the Holocaust. You can do the same analysis, by the way, with Fidel Castro, which is, by the way, the ideological mentor of the L.A. mayor, Karen Bass, Fidel Castro, who the very first thing he did when he took control of Cuba in 1959 was to confiscate guns, right? And if you refused, imprisonment, famine, and then, of course, execution.
So what's the common denominator within these animals? Taking away guns.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
Of course.
I mean, the Second Amendment wasn't to go hunting. That people, I mean, when left-leaning people make that argument, I laugh at them. They're not objectively true, and they're dishonest with the history, or they're ignorant. Maybe they're honestly ignorant. But it's not about going to hunt. It's to protect yourself from a tyrannical government. That's the fact. I mean, that's just the way it is, whether you like it or not. Now, I hope it never gets there, but and also from invasion. Can you imagine other countries that have a bad intent for this country, and they're going to think about, okay, wait, this is an armed people. And when you look at Chicago, when you look at California, look at L.A., look at San Francisco, look at New York, look at Baltimore, look at Portland, look at all the places that have done gun control. I mean, and I'd say irresponsible gun control. When you look at all that, you see that these are dangerous people. When you have no gun, I mean, gun-free zones don't work. I mean, I wish people would just get that idea out of your mind when they say, we don't want guns here, we don't want... All gun-free zones mean they're really defensive victim zones. You're telling the crazy that, oh, great, there's a bunch of defensive victims over there, so I can take advantage of what they call a soft target. That's all it is. Now, if you make the crazy person think, you have 3 places to shoot up. 2 of them, have guns. 1 of them is a gun-free zone. The crazy dude's not going to go, that's a gun-free zone. Oh, let me go get a hammer. No, they're going to use a gun because they know no one has guns over there. The person that is a criminal and that has evil intent, by definition, is not going to follow the law. They don't give a crap about our rules. The only people that follow the rules are the rule followers, and they're the ones that get hurt. That's it. There's people that... Drugs are illegal. Do we have a drug problem in this country? Of course we do. Driving drunk is illegal. Do we have a drug? I mean, go down the list. We can just figure it out. So this idea that this farce taking guns away from people is going to make this. I mean, look at Europe. They'll use knives. There was a knife attack here in the States. I mean, knives are vicious. I mean, so all that to say, the object itself, if I have a loaded weapon, and I'm going to plead the fifth where I have a loaded weapon right now, but if I have a loaded weapon and I put it on this table, it's not, if it's chambered and has hollow point rounds in it, it's never going to hurt anybody. It's just not. Someone has to pick it up, and that still doesn't mean you're going to get hurt. Someone that's irresponsible or intentional with bad is going to hurt you with that weapon. But I can make the same argument with a hammer, with a knife, with a gun, with my steel-toe boots, with anything, with a fork. I mean, let me tell you where the most dangerous place in this country is.
I like this.
George knows, so don't say.
I like it.
Saulo, do you remember when I used my example? What's the most dangerous environment in the United States?
I had no idea what you were talking about when you brought this up.
First time I said it?
Go ahead, yeah.
My mother-in-law's house.
No.
Or maybe
That's
for you,
number
but not
two.
for us.
That's number two.
Karen, do you remember what
I do remember,
Okay.
and I was just blown away.
So the most dangerous environment in the United States is a prison. And how many guns are in prisons?
Zero.
But they have a lot of shanks. And what do you mean shank? They have knives? Well, they have toothbrushes that they make into shank. They have tuna cans they put in socks. They have bed springs that they make shanks out of. It's violent, and there's not one gun in there. But what is wrong in there? There's a mentality problem in there. There's a moral compass issue in there. And there's creativity to use anything around them to be violent. And they have fists, and they have knees and elbows and feet. I mean, it's violent. So the idea that the gun itself makes the environment unsafe is BS. I won't say what I wanted to say. I'll say it on the after show. But it's a lie, and it's a narrative that is inconsistent with the objective data.
Yet people are still wanting to take the guns away because
nobody's
it's
having
the
these conversations,
right thing
Karen.
to do because it's scary.
Because there's an ideological, political objective behind it, and it is a dangerous one and for which we're not confused about. Again, 100 years of history on this stuff. We know exactly what will happen. We know exactly what will happen if the gun-grabbing lobby has their way.
Look at Australia.
Oh, exactly. Okay, we're going to take a break right now. Get to sidebartv.com. Get on there. And after this news break, we'll be back to talk about another topic. This is Sidebar.
San Antonio's news, weather, traffic, plus breaking news 24/7. This is News Radio 1200 WOAI from the GiveMeTheVin.com Sell Us Your Cars studio.
I'm Eric Lycum at News Radio 1200 WOAI. There's an opening for a new Bureau of Labor Statistics commissioner. Details coming up. First, traffic and weather together.
The WOAI Traffic Center.
Loop 1604 eastbound between Bandera Road and Kyle Steele Parkway. We've got that roadway closed due to some construction. 35 northbound, the off-ramp to O'Connor is closed due to road work. I'm Alexis, News Radio 1200 WOAI.
On the way to 94, we've got mostly cloudy and 82 at the WOAI 24-hour Weather Center. Our top story, the agency responsible for reporting on the state of the labor market needs a new leader.
President Trump firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics after a disappointing July jobs report. It shows only 73 house and new jobs were added last month, well below expectations. Trump accused Commissioner Biden appointee of manipulating the number for political gain.
Fox's Chanley Painter reporting. Homeland Security offering student loan forgiveness as well as a $50,000 signing bonus in an effort to recruit more immigration agents. Funding for that coming from the new One Big Beautiful Bill. A highway on the Pennsylvania-Maryland border is reopened after a wreck involving a semi spilling hot dogs on the road shut it down for several hours yesterday. 4 people were injured. News on demand at WOAI.com. Our next update, top of the hour. Breaking information as it happens. I'm Eric Lycum on San Antonio's news, weather, and traffic station, News Radio 1200, WOAI.
This report is sponsored by Unbound.org. Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at Unbound.org.
1200 WOAI. This is Sidebar. Remember, we do have an after show. That means right at 10 o'clock, we will continue the show for at least 30 minutes. And I'm reading all of the comments here. But one of the things that you said, George, before, like right after we broke, is making me think about guns and how this continues to be a conversation and how it continues to be pushed that we've got to get rid of guns. But how is it even possible that the government can, I guess, keep their finger into this topic, keep it active? I mean, is there some transformation that we should be on the lookout for that's going to make it, okay, the government now says blah, blah, blah about guns?
Well, the government isn't doing this alone, Nico. It's had a lot of support from gutted institutions with left-wing ideologies. And I'm going to go back to academia because a lot of junk science to drive the gun control narrative, it comes from universities. Perhaps the most well-known is the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. Just a premier university in so many ways. It's been gutted by left-wing thought. Michael Bloomberg, yes, that Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York City, and in his own right, a billionaire, net worth of over $100 billion. Well, there's the Michael Bloomberg School of Public Health and its Center for Gun Policy and Research at Johns Hopkins University. So make of that what you will.
I wonder if he has any bodyguards that I can.
Okay, this is interesting, and that's exactly where we're going. And it's just go down one layer deeper. So they decided to merge with the Center for Gun Violence Prevention to run the educational wing, and in partnership with the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence, which is a gun control organization. This is what's driving the academics. And so they came out and said, we're going to look at shootings from now on through the lens of public health. And this is the effort. The effort is ultimately this, that if you own a gun, it is a public health hazard. That's where ultimately, and the government has its fingers all over public health. So you see where this is going to go. And it's all based on junk science. And so now you got to step back and say, all right, what does that mean? What are the implications if they interpret things that way? The interpretation is that you will basically negate the rights afforded to you in the Second Amendment. Because if you own a gun and you're a public health concern, tell me, what can't the government do? We all know what happened during COVID. I'm going to flip down to an interesting piece of information because the Johns Hopkins University Board of Regents decided that they were going to vote on the safety and the security of students. And that ultimately, when they did that, they decided that the best means to stop violence on campus was to put guns on campus. This is the dichotomy. The Center for Gun Violence is talking about it as a public health concern, and yet the university, when it came right down to it, decided that arming its security guards and allowing guns on campus was the best way. So somebody please explain that dichotomy to me. This is the inconsistency of the left. FYI, it doesn't matter. As long as it ultimately advances power and advances an agenda, internal contradictions are part of Marxism. They're part of communistic thought.
The cornerstone.
Indeed.
Yeah. Karen, did you want to say something?
No, I don't want to say anything, and I'm trying to figure out how we can transition to the next topic, because I am reading all of these comments that people are talking about, and they're talking about Israel, they're talking about Gaza, they're talking about, as Deborah put it, wait, I don't know if I lost her or not, but everybody, let's see, Sarah said, please explain how we're expected to stand with Israel when they continue to cause so much traumatic suffering. People are hungry, children are dying, horrible deaths. She's struggling with this as a woman with a Christian heart. And that's why I wasn't saying anything.
Because emotion sells.
It's the same thing that I was
So this is a complex issue, complex in the sense that there's a lot of moving parts, and we have to dig into it. You know, George and I had one of our, debates are interesting after our rated the other day. Fellowship, thank you, Sally. It was interesting fellowship that would have freaked everybody else out. But look, so I get all that, but there is a lot of misinformation, and I've heard Tom Cotton present his information. I've heard Mike Huckabee present his information. I've heard Egypt broadcasters criticize Hamas. So there's different issues. Look, Israel is prosecuting a war, and when you prosecute a war, non-combatants are always kind of the unintended consequence. That's it. I mean, and then you have to look at, I'm just going to put out the facts, and then we can dissect them however you want to go. And then you have Hamas, who initiated this conflict. They just did. Whatever you want to say, I mean, October 7th, Hamas is the one that attacked. 12 to 1,400 people, beheadings, babies dead, rapes, hostages, all of that stuff, torture, vicious attacks. And if you don't believe it, I dare you to watch any of the videos. They're horrific. Some of the videos are horrific. Reporters can't look away. They're crying. That's just real. Tony Blinken was physically moved and emotionally moved by watching some of the collage of videos out there. So they initiate. So Israel has a right to respond, and they have a right to respond with actually more force than was used against them. If somebody shoots at me once, I can shoot 5 times to 10 times to as many times as it takes to stop them. That's the Texas law. I mean, everybody says, why didn't you shoot 1 time in the leg? Why didn't you aim for the wrist? That's not the law. The law is I can use deadly force if deadly force is used upon me to stop the deadly force. That could run them over with a car, back over them with a car if they haven't stopped yet. I mean, that's just the way it is. So Israel can prosecute this war. Now, at all costs? No, I think that there's rules of engagement that we have to abide by. For me as a Christian, it's something different. I mean, so we have to look at that. And then so we have aid. So we have Israel prosecuting the war. Then we have the unintended consequences of the citizens there, the non-combatants. That George, this is the element that George and I disagreed with, or we talked about at least a little bit, whether they were supporting Hamas or not, but yet they're non-combatants, and are they subject to the same effect as the combatants? But the problem is Hamas, and Bill Clinton admitted this. Bill Clinton is so good at putting themselves with the non-combatants. They've infiltrated them. They've woven themselves so deeply with the non-combatants. Then you put on the side is this tunnel system. I reckon it to like Vietnam, where all this aid that's been given to them over the years, have they been helping their people? This government of Hamas, have they been helping their people? No, they're creating this advanced tunnel system so they can destroy Israel. Bill Clinton said during his speech, Jeff sent this to me, and I thought it was fascinating. He says, I killed myself trying to give Palestinians their own state. They didn't want it. I mean, he was just talking about it. He talked about how they interwove themselves into the citizens, and they're very good at it because they want to create this emotion that people rightfully have on this. And then you have the aid that's been sent there. The U.S. government, through different organizations, have, I think, served over 100 million meals to people so far. And then 80, but think about it, but yet they're saying that 80% of those meals delivered by the UN and the United States have been hijacked by Hamas and then resold or taken away from them. Okay, and now you have people say, no, that's not true. Yes, that's true. Mike Huckabee says that he has seen videos of this, from drone video of it. Egypt is making the same claim. Certain people from Egypt are making the same claim. So what's the answer? What's the answer? What I find fascinating, whether Israel has criticism or not, and I think they have criticism, of course, no one's perfect except for Christ for me. But is that Hamas, and it happened with Iran, it's fascinating to me, have become victimized, have become the victim. Now people are going to say, no, it's not, it's the citizens. I know, but put the blame where it's, people are saying ceasefire, ceasefire. Why aren't we making the claim surrender? They're saying ceasefire to Israel. Why aren't people calling for Hamas to surrender? Because you know how you have a ceasefire? Hamas surrenders. Is anyone going to defend Hamas's actions? Well, no. Well, then tell them to surrender. But nobody's calling for Hamas to surrender. So, I mean, I'm just giving you an overview, and we could dissect any one of these things, and I probably left something out because I'm really just trying to give you a Cliff Note version so we can dive into this. But the bottom line is this: there's people that are advocating that it's not Israel's fault. Yes, there is some suffering. There's some suffering that's not really happening. I'm not saying all of it's not happening, because you know those fake videos. George made that point, and he's right. And other people have acknowledged this as well, where there was one kid that he really had some type of disease and he wasn't starving, and then they had to retract that. I mean, so is that every one of them? No, there's kids with pans out and saying feed me. So there is obviously a tragedy there, no doubt about it. Then you have Bibi Netanyahu saying it's not happening. Trump saying, well, I don't know, doesn't look that way to me. It looks like something's happening, but we're going to do something else. So Trump disagreed with Bibi on it, which is fine. I'm glad he's doing that. So much for being controlled by Israel, I guess. And so all I'm saying is there's a lot of different factors. That's why I say it's complex, because they're all interwoven together, and we have to figure out what's the best course of action going forward. Now, what I understand, and Huckabee has said this, that Trump has tried to design a plan to protect the aid that is going in to the citizens of Gaza. But this is not a long-term plan. There's no way this can be sustainable moving forward. These people are not thriving no matter what. But in the end, whose fault is it? And if you're not saying that ultimately, it's Hamas's fault, then I don't know if you're looking at this thing objectively.
It's really hard to improve on that breakdown. I mean, I think you've captured well all of the competing pieces of information for the meta narrative. What is the meta narrative? Look, I've studied Israeli history for a long time, and some of it because I'm a Christian, and so obviously the history of the Jewish people and the rise of Christendom are intertwined. So that was interesting to me, outside of Israel's geopolitical concerns in the Middle East. So theologically, I've been very interested. Philosophically, I've been very interested, right? So, but this has been fascinating to me, and I've studied it for years, and it is complex. And so the problem today is that we analyze very complicated issues through the lens of sound bites.
Yeah.
And that is deeply dangerous, and it's grotesquely unjust. Nico sends me, and I'll take it from him. I won't take it from anybody else. But I've told him, this situation is awash in propaganda. And the Western media has carried it. And that can be true while at the same time saying that Israel is not guiltless in this. Those things are true. But again, it gets back to driving outrage. Same conversation we had about gun control.
Yeah.
There's so much information out there that isn't so, that at the end of the day, and I hear this in the comments that you guys are writing in here, what do I believe? Yeah. Here's what I've done. What I've done is I go to independent reporters that are living amongst the issues. And that for years. And yes, track record matters. And so because I for one, I'm just talking about me, because I've followed this for years, I know whose track record is on point. I'm going to give you 3 examples plus a book, and you guys can do with it whatever you wish. And then I'd like to weigh in on what's going on Gaza specifically as it pertains to the humanitarian crisis.
Okay, please hold on to that. We're going to give that after the break, but we got to stop down. Remember, go to sidebartv.com. We'll continue after this break.
With reputations as respected high-level prosecutors in Bexar County, the attorneys of LaHood Norton Law Group bring invaluable practical knowledge from the other side of the aisle, using over 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome.
I'm Nico LaHood with LaHood Norton Law Group. Have you been arrested or accused of a crime? The LaHood Norton Law Group has the knowledge to defend you regardless of how small or large your case. In Bexar County, anywhere in the state, or even nationwide, we have the knowledge to defend you in federal or state court, no matter how small or large your case. We are trial lawyers with proven success.
Using their 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate for their clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome. The LaHood Norton Law Group. For a free consultation, call today, 210-797-7700. 210-797-7700. LaHoodNorton.com.
This is Nico LaHood. If you or a loved one has been arrested or accused of a crime, we can help.
LaHoodNorton.com.
WOAI. Remember, get online now, sidebartv.com, because we will continue the conversation
So
after
bossy,
this last
Karen.
segment. I know,
Very
I'm
bossy.
sorry. Just
I
do
know.
what I say. Don't ask any
Man.
questions. So this is what you guys were talking about, and hopefully I can summarize it during the break. We're getting all of this information about whose fault it is, who's not giving the food, who's the bad guy. Netanyahu, is he good or is he bad? But we're getting all of this information, at least as Americans, from the press. And didn't we just say it's the press that's saying that the shooter in Manhattan is apparently a white man?
The American press on these issues, Karen, they're insane. They literally have lost their minds on this issue. Remember, in the aftermath of October 7th attacks, the news piece that was released in the near aftermath was a major story about Israel bombing Al-Khatib hospital. And the New York Times and a boatload of other media said that 500 are dead. This is Israel again committing genocide, only to discover that it was a Palestinian rocket, so to speak, a Hamas rocket that exploded and killed all those people. Nothing to do with Israel. The Western media carried it because it supported a preconceived notion. This is one example, and there are hundreds of them. The Western media has done the bidding of Hamas for years. Why? We've talked about it in here. We can't spend a show on it. Israel is essentially an outpost of America in left-wing thought. It is. It's the West in the Middle East. And if it's the West, It's racist, it's xenophobic, it's imperialistic, and it's wrong. And it should be attacked. So Israel is America, and America is Israel as far as these people are concerned. Now that's on the left. So the media has picked it up, and there are legitimate cases of suffering. And so those cases have become 100% of the narrative. That's the problem. That's the issue here. So what do we believe? I'd like to recommend a book. I gave the book to Nico, so he knows what I'm talking about. It's called I don't know why I just blanked out, but Israel, A History by Martin Gilbert. It's an excellent book. It's a thick book. It's comprehensive. It's not a quick read. I'll tell you that right now. And it's not an easy read because it's not a quick read. It's not hard to read. It's just a lot. And it's comprehensive. And it's fair. And so I would recommend you get in the book if you really care about the full context. In terms of today and what's going on, there are 3 independent journalists that I have a lot of respect for. They have an excellent track record on this issue. And as Nico says, they call balls and strikes. And I would like to recommend them. Haviv Gur wrote a piece for the Free Press, and you should get this piece and read it. And I think this is the issue. Nico's brought up this issue, and I think she fleshes it out well. She says, here's the name of the piece: Israel's winning one war while it loses another.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an important analysis.
The PR war.
Absolutely. She actually breaks it down into 3 types of wars: the ground war, the humanitarian war, which is an interesting play on words, and the ground war, and excuse me, the information war, which you would call the PR war. There's another piece by Maddie Friedman that I'd like to recommend, and it's real straightforward. He asks the question, is Gaza starving? Searching for the truth in an information war. It's an excellent piece. And in my favorite, because it gets to the issue, yes, that's right, it's published in The Atlantic, which is no friend of conservatism. But they let Ahmed Al-Khatib write a piece, and he is a Palestinian. And he very even-handedly reports on the issue. It's called Hamas Wants Gaza to Starve. Because it has been what he calls their salvation.
Yeah, it is their salvation. It is their lifeline.
Yes.
And when sorry, George, when the UN jumps in, or and then all these 140 countries now have said they're going to acknowledge and recognize Palestine as a separate state, which they can't do on their own. I mean, including the UK and all. That's an emotional.
But this is excellent. This is what I mean by the West.
Yeah.
We're not doing anybody any favors. Look, the hypocrisy has a stench about it that nauseates me. It nauseates me. These people aren't in the thick of it. They're not losing their lives. So they can sit there and do symbolic acknowledgments of a 2-state solution. By the way, like, that hasn't been tried.
Right.
And it hasn't failed over and over again. Why? Because the Palestinian Authority is a weak and corrupt entity. That's why. It was under their watch that Hamas was elected, by the way.
Right.
Yes, overwhelmingly in 2007 in Gaza. So forget that narrative. It's a joke. But you got to step back and say, what is the point here? What's the objective by the West? What's going on? I mean, and what's going on is that they're leveraging, it seems to me, an information war against Israel. And Israel has not, I'm going to say this very carefully, Israel has not done itself any favors.
No.
On the PR war.
I agree.
Let me explain the humanitarian crisis. This is a tragedy, and it hurts my heart. And yes, it hurts my heart for everyone, but it bothers me that Israel has taken the hit on this deeply. It's deeply immoral and unjust. Israel has provided, and I'm going to say this, hundreds of thousands of tons of aid to Gaza.
That's true.
Okay? Egypt has provided dozens. Jordan, dozens. No one even comes close to the amount of aid that has been provided by Israel. None. Hundreds of thousands of aids. From January to March, they provided a 6-month supply of humanitarian aid. That independent organizations, yes, that's right, including the UN, the World Food Program, came out and said, yeah, that's true. We confirm there's 6 months of aid. But by March and April, it was gone. Why? Well, why? Because it's happened over and over again. Why did this become an issue? By the way, it's been going on for decades. Yeah. Why is it an issue now, Nico? Because once again, the Western media started the ball rolling with what? A hit piece that turned out to be propaganda that the New York Times then pulled back from. Do you remember the pictures a few days ago of an emaciated young child
he was
in the arms of his mother by the New York Times?
Yes.
That turned out to be fake because that young child was indeed emaciated, but nothing to do with this quote-unquote Israel-induced starvation in Gaza. It's a genetic condition.
You and I were talking about this. I mean, Bibi's not helping himself, Netanyahu. So he had that interview, and George and I were just talking about this on the break, when he says Israel has no starvation policy. And he should have shut his ass right there. He doesn't. And there is no starvation. Well, there is starvation. Now, but so you have no policy. So two things can be true at the same time. Israel doesn't have a starvation policy, check, because of the points that George just brought out. All the aid they've been preventing, they've stopped. They have a lull in their fighting to allow more aid to come in, and that's why Huckabee gets very defensive. Tom Cotton very defensive, and he made a very good presentation with objective facts. Because when you do the he said, she said, or he said, it's like, okay, yeah, that doesn't work in a court of law.
Right.
Back it up with evidence.
That's right.
Right, and so Bibi goes, there's no starvation policy, and there's no starvation. Well, that's where everyone's focusing on that. And that's why they asked President Trump about it. And so Trump was rightfully forced to disagree with him. And I'm glad he did. He disagreed with him. He said, well, I don't see it that way. We're still going to be working on getting them aid and stopping Hamas from hijacking those loads. So now, with that intentional, he obviously screwed up. That was a big screw up. But they're losing the PR war for sure. Because you can't even Google this stuff. You can't look on YouTube. It's always about the starvation, and there's not bringing out the facts that I know
Nico,
could be
if
another
we can, and I think we're going to be doing something that you're not going to hear this anywhere else, and this is very unfortunate. Back to this idea of a humanitarian war. This is how it went off the skids for Israel. It was all going very well, and then it wasn't, because they decided to play a game of chicken with Hamas. Lesson to the wise, don't play a game of chicken with Hamas. So Israel decides, after they send them 6 months supply of aid, and this is in Haviv Gur's piece, and it's very well documented, and it's brilliantly explained. Israel decided that they were going to force concessions on ceasefire by threatening them not to send aid. They said, effective at the end of March, we're not going to send you aid anymore unless you guys release all the hostages. So Hamas brilliantly reasons, okay, we're stockpiling all this aid.
Yeah.
There will be no aid available. We'll blame Israel, and it'll be a matter of documentation that Israel said that they were going to stop.
Right.
And now Israel becomes the culprit.
And it worked beautifully.
It worked absolutely brilliant. And here's the problem. This isn't new. This has happened multiple times before, but because Israel didn't step into a pile of crap like they did. And then Haviv Gur says, and here's the problem. After doing something that stupid, Israel has no one. There's not one English-speaking head of their PR department. There is no PR department, really. No one is out there communicating the context. This is your criticism, Nico. You and I went back and forth at it because it's a legitimate concern. Where's the PR? Where? They're nowhere. And she made the point that there have been multiple news agencies who are desperate for the truth, just as the people who are listening today to Sidebar, and thank you for listening. We're hungry for the truth. If you're a believer in Christ, for instance, you really care about the truth. And while you may support Israel in a lot of ways, as a Christian, you cannot support people who are deliberately starving others.
That's right.
Obviously. There's other ways to do this. Now, let's step back. She criticizes, Haviv Gur, criticizes the fact that there's a PR vacuum. And there's no one available for Western media sources. She says it's been crickets to get any kind of communication. I think this is unforgivable. It's understandable, but at the end of the day, it's
unforgivable of whom?
Of Israel.
Oh, yeah.
In this regard, they know the games that Hamas plays. There's no excuse. Are you kidding me? I mean, why not have an organization in your organization that can break things down, leverage social media, flood the media? There are people hungry for the truth. Use them. It's been crickets. She said trying to get a hold of people who can speak to the issues has been like pulling teeth. So Israel's at a point, and this is I think understandable, but I think it's hurting them right now. The point is, look, we've gone at it alone. We're used to going at it alone. We're used to being suffocated by propaganda. So at the end of the day, F you people, we're going to do it alone. Let the chips fall where they may. And I think there's a confidence because they know that we know the truth, that the United States government is the truth. Under this administration, there's a confidence that the United States isn't going to abandon them. But the problem, where does that leave everybody else, Nico? Where does everybody else on social media?
Well,
they got to do better.
They got to do better, but people can only formulate an opinion based off information that they're presented with. And so if you only presented one side of an information, it's understandable why people, and it's emotional information. I always say this, and you've heard me say this for years, if a lie goes unchecked, it becomes the truth.
Yeah.
It becomes because perception is reality, so it becomes the truth to the person receiving that, and that's all they have. And then young people. I mean, Israel has lost support. I mean, I was talking about this at the Turning Point. They had their convention or whatever, their gathering a month ago or whatever it was, and then Tucker's criticizing Israel, and the audience is clapping. Now, that's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I criticize Israel. It's not a problem. But they're criticizing them for reasons that we're talking about today because of the misinformation war out there. And that's why people like Mike Huckabee and Tom Cotton and others are trying to advocate and put the truth out there. Make up your mind, but at least have the knowledge. So Israel is as good as they do other things. They've done. Now, is this intentional? I have no idea. What's the answer to this moving forward? I mean, Trump says, I know he knows what he would do. And he says, but I'm not going to say what I'm going to do with, because they're not going to release the hostages. There's not, like Trump said, he's right. At some point, when you get down to a certain number, what's their bargaining chip? There's like, well, I got 20 hostages, and if the hostages are the only thing keeping us alive or keeping us in somewhat of a negotiating position, why am I going to release these hostages? So then you have to make some pretty hard decisions at that point. And then how do you stop? Where does this go? I guess what I always ask questions to people is, play this out. What's the long-term plan for Israel?
Yeah.
What's the long-term plan for Israel? What's the long-term plan for Gaza?
Yes.
And the reality is, the argument that this is a genocide, I don't think, in my humble opinion, this is an objectively legitimate argument. Because if Israel is trying to commit a genocide, they're not doing a great job at it, because they could do way other things. They can do other things more effectively than this. Right, and so they're not doing it well. So look, we need to flesh these things out. We didn't even talk about the economy and the jobs. I mean, in the economic report.
Talk about a bad PR move. There's nothing there. Yeah, I know.
But look, if you haven't done it, please jump onto sidebartv.com. We're going to stay on for another 30 minutes or so, answering your questions, looking at your comments. Thank you for joining in. Please share these shows with someone you think may benefit from it, and have a very blessed weekend. Bye-bye. See you in the after show.
The preceding show was paid for by the LaHood Norton Law Group. The views and opinions expressed are those of the advertiser and do not necessarily represent those of WOA.
Okay. Talk about that PR war that we're losing on all fronts.
To just capstone this, Nico, I'll go back to the Palestinian reporter that I was talking about, Ahmed Al-Khatib, in the Atlantic. Again, I'm quoting a Palestinian, a lifelong Palestinian who's an independent reporter who has been critical of Israel and is now decidedly critical of Hamas because he's looking at the particulars, right? Across the decades. He's lived there, so he has that, and he has that sort of horizontal perspective, and now he knows what's going on because he's there now and has reported for the Atlantic, which is no friend of Trump. Okay, here's what he writes. Despite the surge of hundreds of trucks into Gaza over the past 4 days, he just wrote this literally a couple days ago, very few supplies have made it into warehouses to be distributed to the population. Aid shipments are being seized by a combination of desperate civilians, lawless gangs, clan-affiliated thugs, and merchants of death. The latter three led by Hamas.
Right.
Chaos and apocalyptic scenery are the norm. I think that's how you would say it. You've sent me these pictures of what looks like the apocalypse. I mean, and so they said that's the norm, not the exception. There is no denying the reality of the widespread malnutrition and hunger in the Gaza Strip. What's happening is that you have Hamas and Hamas-led, I'll use the word constituents, hoarding supplies. It's basic supply and demand. You have less supplies, the prices for these things skyrocket because there's a scarcity, and people starve because they can't acquire those things. He continues, in recent days, I've spoken with dozens of Gazans who are furious about what is unfolding around them. They are angry, and one told me at the, quote,
hordes of selfish people who are attacking aid convoys to steal and collect aid in a horrific manner without caring for Gazans who chose not to participate in these humiliating and demeaning displays of inhumanity, no matter the level of hunger, end of quote. But their anger is directed primarily at Hamas, which they hold responsible for putting the people of Gaza in this position and for its continued refusal to end the war that it started. And he goes on to say that Hamas wants to see Gaza destroyed to the very last child. They want to see Gaza burned to the ground if it means the destruction of Israel. That's the objective. That's the issue.
You can't negotiate with that. How do you negotiate with someone that says, I'll start negotiating how I'm going to kill you or when I'm going to kill you?
Yeah.
Well, is there any way we can negotiate both of us living in harmony? If you're dead, yes. I'm trying to simplify it, but I mean, that's literally what's going on here. And when you look at Israel, and that's why because I get into these discussions with people that, and conservative people that have supported Israel in the past, this is working.
I know.
They've turned.
It's
They've
being
turned on Israel.
fueled by the media.
They've turned on Israel.
And that's what makes it even...
And when you look at Israel,
Yeah.
if you look at the map over the years, Karen, and I brought this up, and George has brought this up, and I've seen other people make presentations, because when you see it on a map, it comes to life for you. From past wars and conflicts, Israel should be 3 times the size it is now, at least, maybe 4. I mean, it should be huge, much more, because they want, and there's consequences.
So much
to
for
war.
being imperialistic.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. I mean, they should be taking over a bigger portion of the region from other countries, not just from in the Gaza Strip. I mean, Jordan, Egypt, whatever. I'm talking about over the decades. And they've negotiated this land back in peace
in the
negotiations.
name of peace,
And
right?
They have not been kept. So again, look, here's the deal. I don't have Israeli deranged syndrome like Salo does. I don't have Israel euphoria like Jeff does, our friend Jeff. I have to be fair, Salo. I have to be fair. Okay,
Jeff was listening.
I'm sorry, Jeff. He's pissed at me now. I'm joking. I'm an Israel realist, and I do call balls and strikes. I want the objective evidence. I want all the evidence. I don't want a slanted portion of it. And then let's make we can make our judgment at that point.
Yes.
And we should hold Israel accountable. And now I think that there's a political aspect to it, and to me, there's a faith aspect to it. I cannot ignore what God's word says, how the land of Israel is going to be used for the second coming of our Savior, right? And how the remnants of the people are going to be saved. I mean, sorry, Jewish people don't get a pass on salvation. If you believe in a Christian worldview, which I do. I mean, all that to say, then there's a political aspect to that. They're our ally they're not really our ally in Mossad, and they've been using us and all this. Okay, we can have that discussion, bring the objective evidence, and I'll listen. I'm going to follow the evidence wherever it leads me, because I truly want the truth. As Churchill said, the truth is the most valuable thing in the world. And it's often protected by a valley of lies, right? I mean, so I want to know the truth. I think most people want to know the truth. The problem is no one knows what to hell believe anymore. I mean, even myself.
No, I hate that.
I mean, this guy's a scholar, so he
that.
can get information quickly, and he can absorb it quickly, and he's been studying it for years. Most of us don't give a shit, and so we're just like, what? What are you talking about? How does it affect our
but
food
doesn't
prices?
it make you mad that you can watch or listen to a newscast and you can say, oh my God, I can't believe that Hillary is lying, or why are they reporting on that when we all know the truth, like the laptop or something, and we all know the truth. But why is it that we get sucked into these lies about Israel? Why is it so easy for us to say, oh my gosh, Israel's causing that? What?
Why do we get sucked into lies about gun control?
Sure.
I mean, because it's emotional, because there is real tragedy. And then you tie that tragedy, and our instinct is to want to try to solve tragedy. And we really are an empathetic people. God designed us that way. Yes. That's how we're wired as a whole, right? And so that leads us to that conclusion, or to that desire. And so then when you see nothing but look at the COVID situation, look at any BS that's
Absolutely.
been. I mean, people. I mean, cut off family members. People died alone. People had babies by themselves. My sister-in-law. People did cut off weddings. I mean, people didn't quit talking to family members, and friends were cut off over the jab, and over this, and over COVID, and over masks, and
still
driving by
happening.
themselves and running outside with a mask on like a dumb dick outside. with a mask on.
And all based on a misinformation and just manipulation.
lie.
Thinking
And a
very
snowball
propagandistic.
effect.
And that's why I go
And
back.
emotion.
Yes,
And
I mean,
emotion.
and people die. This is what. I mean, this is why I went back to that example about the Al Ali hospital report by the New York Times. That literally led to destruction. And I'd just like to pause there for a moment. See, we're not taking inventory of that. So the Al Ali hospital again was bombed, and on the front page of the New York Times, you saw at least 500 dead. It was bullshit. But by the time oops happened, you had furious protests that had erupted, and you had a mob that burned a synagogue in Tunisia.
And it was objectively proven that it was bullshit, right?
Absolutely.
Objectively. This is not George's opinion.
No, I mean, by the time that Israel discovered that they had done something, I mean, think about that. By the time they discovered it, everybody was learning finally that it was actually a bomb that was launched by Hamas that had landed in the hospital.
Yep.
And that's my point. People actually died as a result of that. That's the issue. And the media shrugs its shoulders and moves on to the next shiny object. This is inexcusable. We've got to be better than this, people. And so, at least on Sidebar, I'm assuming you're listening to Sidebar because you're critical thinkers.
It's
and
hard, George.
You're going beyond the headlines.
In all fairness, it's hard, brother. I mean, you know that. I mean, we're all subject to it. We get emotional. We have and it's.
And I wasn't going to critique. I was simply going to encourage.
No,
people
I know, but I'm
try
just
to go
saying
beyond the headlines.
I'm just saying in general, even outside of the audience, it's in general, ignorance just meaning not knowing. I mean, I'm ignorant to a lot of this stuff. Most people don't have the interest you have and have the time or have the ability to study this stuff and to stay on top of it.
I know.
And then it's like, it's not important to me until it's important to you. And then people just have this tendency to follow their emotion in the crowd. And then all the evidences they're seeing is starvation, starvation, starvation. Well, who's stopping it? It's Israel's fault. Well, I guess it's Israel's fault. And no retort. I mean, if the government, if I'm serving as a defense attorney, if the government does their opening statements and presents their evidence and there's no cross-examination, no closing arguments, no opening statement from the defense, 100% conviction rate. I guarantee you, I don't care what it is. No one's going to figure it out on themselves. Why do you think they say you can indict a ham sandwich? Because the indictment, the grand jury process is a one-sided process. It's set up to be quote unquote fair, but it's not. I mean, you have 12 people in there, grand jurors. You have just the state, the government, either the government, federal or state, presenting evidence. The rules of evidence don't apply. There's no judge. There's no cross-examination. There's no defense. There's no argument. There's no nothing. And they can present whatever evidence they want to present. Some of it, and skew it their way by explaining the evidence. And without experts, there's no testimony. There's no witnesses. That's why anybody can get indicted. So it's the same thing. There's an indictment.
But it doesn't help if we're standing behind Daddy and Daddy's confused too, or making us feel confused.
I love what Trump has done on this actually, because he said he called Netanyahu out on the second part of his statement. He said, "Come on, there's legitimately people starving." Yeah. And Huckabee was saying that there were legitimately people, and there are pockets of starvation in Gaza. And there's no question about it, and there's more than one pocket. That's why. Javier, of course, there's widespread starvation. But we have to understand why. And the idea that Israel has shouldered that, I think, is deeply unjust. And I can't stand injustice like that. That's the kind of crap that keeps me up at night. I mean, and I know I'm preaching to the choir with you here, Nico, on that issue. But just stepping back here, you've got this this situation where Israel realized that you're not going to win a game of chicken with Hamas. That was a really stupid thing to do. And now they partner with the U.S. I'm going back to March and May. You guys have probably heard about the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Okay, that is an Israel entity with the partnership of U.S. This is the organization that's now getting food into the hands of Palestinians. Now, why is that important? Stop and think about this. The reason why this has been recently instituted in the last few months, and yes, Israel's leading it.
Wait a second.
Those genocidal
I can't
pricks.
get my head
Why
around
would the
that.
United States be in partnership with Israel to lead that effort? So what's happening is that up until then, every single humanitarian effort, which was led by the worthless UN, was sent directly to Hamas. And Hamas will do one of those two things. They'll feed themselves and their soldiers. And here's the dirty little secret. And yes, this is documented. Read those pieces that I forwarded to you. And there's other media on this. They'll take the food and they'll sell it. Mm-hmm. I mean, Again, hundreds of thousands of tons of aid. It's at a premium. They'll take it and they'll sell it and they'll enrich themselves over it. Now, here's what happened. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is founded, and the United States and Israel told the UN to fuck off, right, in terms of leading it. But they asked the UN to be part of it. This is important. They said, look, you guys are not doing a great job leading this. You've enriched Hamas. We're going to take over. And they asked the UN to participate. What do you think the UN said? Fuck off.
What?
So much for caring about those poor Palestinians. Now, this is the cabal. This is the ideological cabal that I'm talking about. The children matter, except, of course, when they don't. Where was the UN? Why didn't the UN step up? Now, if you're Googling this, you realize that the UN has decided to step up recently because that shit's been called out.
Well, yeah, because
They don't want to look bad now.
Yeah, now they're doing it for selfish reasons. They're not doing it because they give a shit.
But you asked a question, where do we go from here? And so all of a sudden, Trump's proposal from February doesn't sound insane.
Taking
the
over
idea
Gaza.
of the Riviera of Gaza, right?
That's a great point, George. That is a great point.
So you could either do that, or you could just have continual mass killings
where does this
perpetrated by
end?
Hamas.
I mean, who's got answers? I can't stand when people bitch about things without an answer. I don't mind you bitching, complain, whatever, bring up issues, but then what's the solution?
So
what's the
back to this mass killings, but because you sent me a video and I want to address
Which
it. The
one?
other day you sent me a video. George, what's your response to this? Somebody sent a video. I think it was you. It was a former U.S. military guy by the name of Tony Aguilar, who was crying because a young kid at a food station had come up to him and thanked him. A little boy, a precious little boy, and apparently that precious little boy was gunned down in sort of a hail of fire, and apparently it was the IDF. And there's no evidence to suggest it wasn't the IDF.
Was or was not?
But it was not.
Yeah, we don't know.
So and we just don't know. But I want to point this out, and this is well documented. There have been dozens of examples at various food exchange stations
where Hamas is killing people.
Yeah, well, where the IDF is there, and you will have suicide bombings. And a lot of them perpetrated, listen to me, by women and children. Yeah. The IDF they're not guiltless. But every single day, they're on pins and needles. So let me just say that the IDF has lost thousands in this exploit.
So what George is bringing up is something that Mike Huckabee brought up. I saw him. He said the same thing. He said, look, does anybody doubt that Hamas and Hezbollah and ISIS and all them, terrorists use children and women to do suicide bombings? I mean, and they tell them and they encourage them to do it, and they think they're doing a good thing and they're going to end up in paradise. I mean, this didn't just start now. That's happened before. So Mike Huckabee was talking about that there is these, and there's warning shots given. Please stay back. Don't come forward. All this other stuff. Some of the crowd are so hungry because this situation has been created that they're just bum rushing, which is you can't have that either. They're going to get run over and there's going to be death anyway. And then there's these suicide bombings fears, and it have actually happened. I mean, so again, context matters. Like I always tell people, every murder involves a killing, but every killing is not a murder, right? Every assault involves a strike, but every strike is not an assault. It depends on the context. And so context is king. And so the things that Huckabee, I know, is out there, that George is pointing out, that this piece, obviously, that George has shared with us, is trying to point out. But this is not the narrative. That's the issue. This is why we say, and I've said, that they're losing the PR war, because they have. And it's effective. And so this has been a resurgence of Hamas. And they're actually getting support from dumbass countries because of emotion and because they want to go along to get along, because the crowds are chanting, we want Barabbas instead of Christ, you know what I mean? And that's what's happening, but they're not playing this thing out. I loved Marco Rubio's response. Did you hear what he said? Because what do you say to all these countries in the UN that are supporting one to have a Tuesday? It's irrelevant. He goes, I just love Marco. Did I tell you?
He's too cool.
The dude is just, man, he's like a stealth ninja, man. He's informative. He's deadly with his information. He's well trained with his narrative, his retorts are amazing, and he's just it's irrelevant. I mean, it's irritating. He said it's frustrating, but it's irrelevant. And number one, what state are they talking about? What land are they talking about? Who's going to govern this land? How are they going to fund this, by the way? This is a joke, and it can't happen based off the rules, I guess, without Israel's approval, and that's not going to happen. So it's just a bunch of placating to the masses because they put this caveat in there. It will acknowledge them under these conditions. Well, those conditions aren't going to happen. So you're just doing this to make yourself look good, at least to the audience you're playing to.
And the idea that these Western countries, many of them Western, would want a two-state solution. Remember, they're not saying that they want a two-state solution after Hamas is gone. They're saying they want a Palestinian two-state solution
with Hamas
now.
Yeah, that's
with Hamas. That's insane.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, with the Palestinian Liberation Authority, it's mythological. It could never happen. With Hamas, it's absurd that they would consider that. I mean, this is a genocidal terror group. You're really concerned about genocide? That's Hamas. Okay? That's the issue here. For Western countries to be doing that, I think is the height of weakness and corruption and cowardice. Remember, Britain and France and the like, these were the same countries in World War II who looked the other way when Hitler was annexing country after country after country. That was I'm telling you, this is a parallel. You go back to 1938 with Neville Chamberlain in Britain, and it was the same thing. Well, first, Hitler takes Austria in 1938. Oh, you know what? He seemed like such a nice guy. Well, maybe it's because he's Austrian. Well, he better not do it again. It's that.
It's Joe Biden, don't.
So Neville Chamberlain.
Very effective.
Yeah.
Neville Chamberlain visits Hitler in September, a few months later. And Hitler smooths him over. And Neville Chamberlain comes back and says, well, I've spoken to him, and I get a sense. Same shit we're hearing today. I get a sense that he knows better now. Really? 6 months after that, he takes the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. And 6 months after that, it was Poland. Meanwhile, Western leaders are pointing their finger. You better not. You better not. You better not. And nobody gave a shit, Nico, until bombs were dropping in London in 1940 and 41. And until France, who was sitting there right with Britain, waving their finger until they were invaded.
Well, Britain's done. I mean, does anybody think that we're not going to be dealing with Britain for
France
much longer?
France is right behind him.
France is right behind it with Macron and his husband. But sorry, that was for you, Salo.
Let's call Candace.
No, but Britain is gone. I mean, what I'm worried about Britain is once it's finalized of the Islamic takeover of Britain, that's a nuclear country. Have you thought about that? Has anyone thought about that? Put that in your wheelhouse of speculation of what happens. So Britain is a nuclear power. And if anyone thinks that Britain is not going to be completely done within 10 years and be an Islamic country, I don't think you're looking at what's going on. Georgia, you disagree with that at all?
No.
And I haven't. 10 years is just my mind. I'm just seeing how fast Britain has lost their culture. I mean, you're going to see King Charles or whatever. He's going to be King Mohammed soon, and it's going to be something different, and it's not going to be any of those guys. It's done. The whole place is done because and you can't even criticize Islam. You can't criticize anything. And that's a nuclear power. So put that in your wheelhouse of possibilities down the road and why no one's thinking about that.
And this is a situation they've gotten themselves into because, and it's really fear and indifference. It's a vacillation between the two. They now have hordes of North Africans who have basically...
That have not assimilated. And that are enforcing, and they're outwardly saying they want Sharia law.
Yeah.
They're saying it. How many major cities, I mean, if you can Google it, Salo, but George may know off the top of his head, how many major cities in that region are controlled by an Islamic mayor?
Probably the majority.
And implementing Islamic rule under Sharia?
Oh, there's about a dozen major cities. Yeah,
it's because they're multiplying because they've gone there. You should look at the gatherings in there and the chants and what they're doing and the violence is being used. Look, I mean, it's there for you to make up your own mind. But I don't want that here.
No.
I don't want that here. And that's why I wouldn't mind, and this is a different topic, but I'm passionate about it because I dealt with it when I was DA. I would love laws to say that there's no law that can be implemented inside of the United States of America other than the Penal Code and the Constitution. No Sharia, no any other law. No law can be implemented. Nothing that even looks like it. It should be outlawed. Communism should be outlawed, and so should Sharia law should be outlawed. Anything. This is a constitutional republic. And if you think look at any other place where these ideas are implemented and see if they're flourishing. They're not.
It's almost sad that you even have to say that.
Well,
but
I mean-
you're right.
I mean,
they can
so-
take over like a second.
So
Oops.
the gift of freedom can also be used against
Yeah.
you if you don't understand the parameters. And Scripture talks about that. Something may be permissible but not beneficial, right? And there's things that aren't benefiting us ideologically.
I'd like to recommend a piece by Robert Spencer.
Robert.
He wrote a piece called "A World Historical Transformation is Taking Place in Britain, Yet Few Have Noticed." Written June of last year, a year ago. And
Is it
it's
an article?
Yes, it is.
Who's
a
the
it's a
author
piece-
I like to
again?
read that one.
It's,
Yeah.
it's a piece on pjmedia.com. And the reason I like it is because he discusses some of the stats that I've shared, that we've shared on R-Rated, and R-Rated Christianity. We were talking about this, where he explains that the mayor of London is a Muslim, the mayor of Birmingham is a Muslim, the mayor of Leeds is a Muslim, the mayor of Blackburn is a Muslim, the mayor of Sheffield is a Muslim, the mayor of Oxford is a Muslim, the mayor of Luton, I believe, Luton, is a Muslim, the mayor of Oldham is a Muslim, the mayor of Rochdale is a Muslim. And all this was accomplished
But it's
by
not
4
just
million
that.
Muslims out of 66 million
That's
people.
right. But it's not just that. It's what ideas are being implemented. That's the key. And so you look at the culture of the UK, of Britain, sorry, and then you see what's being it's replaced with. Look, Syria.
They have no desire to assimilate.
Syria
None.
and Egypt. No, they're not going to.
Right.
They're not going to do it. And they're open about it. They're not even secretive about it, that they want to establish Sharia law. I mean, so look at Iran before the 1970s. We looked at those pictures. We've talked about that before, right? I mean, look at all Syria, Egypt used to be Christian nations. They're not. People don't be like, what are you talking about? They used to be Christian nations. They're not anymore. And so and that could be done by violence. It could be done by influence, and it's been done by influence. And then it becomes violence to keep it that way.
it does.
And so, I mean, people need to wake the fuck up. Sorry, there's no other way to say it.
Sid online said there are now more mosques in England than churches, all denominations.
Sid is objectively true. That is objectively true. That is exactly right.
The piece states that there's about, at least as of June of 2024, that there's over 3,000 mosques in England. There are over 130 Sharia courts.
People don't know what that is. So what he means by Sharia courts, because they wanted to establish that here in Texas.
Do you get the sense that Nico's interested in this? 'Cause
Yeah.
But a Sharia court says that whatever's going on with this community of people, Sharia law governs. So you come to a Sharia court, we apply Sharia law to it. And what's Sharia law? You could study it. Study what Sharia law is and what it is. If a woman gets sexually assaulted under Sharia law, she cannot claim sexual assault unless she has the witness of 4 men. And she cannot testify on her own sexual assault claim and trial. Women cannot inherit money like a man can. A woman can be divorced. A man cannot be divorced. It's not it's a unilateral deal. Men can have multiple wives. Women can only have one. I mean, women can be beaten for insubordination. I can go on and on and on and on and on about property rights, about women's rights, about gay rights, about all that stuff. I mean, it's all there. I mean, so what a Sharia court is, and they almost established one in Irving, Texas when I was DA. And then that's why that whole epic city here in Texas
Right.
was a big deal. And
Yes.
I'm glad finally someone stepped up. They were going to buy all this land, and then they were going to establish this, and only certain people could live there, and a certain way of ruling there. It's bullshit. I mean, make your own country. I mean, so to me, not all ideas are the same, because ideas have consequences. So forget about the label. That's why I don't like using Muslim. I say Islamic, because they're Islamic ideas. You're called a Muslim if you follow Islam. It doesn't make sense, right? You follow Christ, you're a Christian. You know, Hindu, Buddhist, they have their own. So, but I talk about the idea: Buddhist idea, Hindu idea, atheist idea, Islamic idea, Christian ideas, whatever, pantheistic ideas. So I want to talk about the ideas and then the implementation of those ideas, and do those ideas comport with the ideas of this country? This country has a set of ideals and ideas that they wanted everybody to believe. And we talk about this before. I won't open that can of worms here, whether this country in ideology and in foundation is a Judeo-Christian one, and it is, by the way. I'll give you the answer now, Cliff Note version. But and that can be supported. So that's what my passion. It's not about, I mean, the religion's a religion. Many people make the point, and I think there's a lot of objective ways to support this, that Islam is a military movement. It's a political movement wrapped in a religion. When you think about it, I mean, it's imperialistic in nature, right? Because they're trying to establish one caliphate, one government under one caliph, one ruler. That's I mean, and that's objectively true. I was forced to study this because when I was DA, I was being asked questions, and I was on a panel about Sharia courts and why wouldn't you want a Sharia court? How about I establish a Christian court? What are you talking about? I mean, and then there's a different court, a Hindu court, and a Buddhist court. What are you talking about, a Sharia court? I mean, and it almost by one vote in Irving, Texas, you can research this. Was it in 17? I don't remember what. Someone fact check me. That it by one vote it was stopped. And not city council
That's
almost
scary.
passed
No, it's true.
That
a
is
Sharia
scary.
court
Yeah,
in
that's
Irving,
legit.
Texas.
That's legit.
Yeah. And that should wake you up. It's
Yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, how you run your personal home is one thing. And even if you look, we have ideas in homes. If someone says, well, my set of ideas, I want to be able to marry a 9-year-old, which can happen, by the way, in Islam, under the hadiths. Or I want to have multiple wives, or I want to have, this, or I want to beat my kids, or I want to starve them if I want to. They're my kids, I can starve them. No, you can't. You can't do certain things. There's parameters. And so we have to understand what we're implementing and what we're advocating for and what we're keeping quiet about. Because if you're quiet, look, it's all about persuasion, Karen. I'll leave it at this point because I want to, as we wind up, I want to answer. If there's any comments that you want to address, I want to address comments. This whole life is about people trying to persuade people. You're trying to persuade me, Karen, or I'm trying to persuade you. And if you're quiet, you're going to lose the persuasion game. And so what are we trying to advocate for? For me as a Christian, I'm advocating Matthew 28:19, right? The Great Commission. As an American, I'm advocating the Constitution, and I need to understand what the Constitution means, and I want to preserve and defend the Constitution. When I was in office, I gave a pledge to preserve and defend the Constitution. When you're in the military, you make a pledge to preserve and defend the Constitution, not any other set of ideas. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all that.
And the problem is that while you have 3.5 million Muslims or so in the United States, just to bring the issue across the water back into the U.S., about 40% of those want to see Sharia implemented. That's the problem, because I know everybody's thinking, well, I know a really reasonable Muslim person. So do I.
Sure.
And I'm just going to say this: some of the people that I have just enormous respect for are Muslim. That's not the issue. I'm just looking holistically on aggregate. So 40% of them are saying that they would like to see Sharia implemented, and 1/3 of those 3.5 million want to see Islam as the national religion. Now, if that's the case, by default, the Constitution is muted. That's very, very concerning. And so we got to step back and say, okay, we can't become the UK. We need to demand of our political leaders that they speak seriously and responsibly about this, and that they do not allow this to be hijacked into civil rights territory. Because a lot of damage has been done in American culture by nefarious movements getting under the umbrella of civil rights and really sort of gutting the American culture. I mean, this is what happened ultimately with the LGBTQ lobby. And as we've stated a number of times, it had absolutely no chance of success in the United States until it managed to couch its arguments in civil rights language. And you would have never seen an Obergefell v. Hodges in 2015 if it wasn't for that. So we got to step back and familiarize ourselves with the issue. This is deeply, deeply concerning. If you want the Constitution to remain the law of the land anyway.
Yeah. Karen, any comments?
No, Ray says, I have friends in Europe and they're still all calling us the gun crazy cowboys. People pretty much are agreeing. It's like, come on.
Well,
about the Sharia law and the courts there. Like, you can't let one foot in the door on that topic.
But Nico, it's worse. It's worse.
We're
than
not
that.
educated. And my issue,
That's
sorry, George,
what
my issue is that where's the church in all this? Where's the church on all this? And I brought this up when we were on R-rated. Why aren't we educating people on this? Why isn't the Christian church just saying, look, guys, here's what's going on. Our advocacy is the Great Commission. We don't do it by force, though. We do it by persuasion. There's two ways to govern a country, by persuasion or by force. Our founding fathers chose persuasion, that you persuade people and you have elections and you have debates and you have free thought and you have free expression of that thought and you be able to, to commiserate with other people and gather with other people and talk about things and advocate a position. That's the way we chose, because that's freedom. Because we had this experiment going on. We wanted to break away from the monarch. We wanted to break away from the king, and we wanted to start our own thing. And it was messy and it wasn't perfect. I got it. There were stumbles, and it was and there's flawed people that did it. But man, what a set of ideas, man. And then they said, well, where can we get some more ideas from? They chose Judeo-Christian ideas. And the Christian mindset is God doesn't force himself on you. He doesn't. He gives you a choice. You have free agency to choose, right? But there's some parameters, there's some guidance, there's some principles There's some
Because we're
tenets.
made in His image and
Because
have inherent
we're the Imago
value.
Dei. Yeah, we have Imago Dei, and we value other people.
And that in itself is a significant departure from Islam.
Yes,
It's a very big.
Of course
and
it is.
It's not. No, it's not the same God.
No.
And so the characters are different. Priorities are different. The idea that mankind has inherent rights, precious before God, and love for God, love for neighbor. There are significant departures inside Islam.
Yeah.
And Islamic scholars who say otherwise, I think, are being deliberately manipulative. It's just not true. But we got to step back. It's beyond Sharia. There's a violence aspect. We need to step back and think. I mean, it was Bill Werner, scholar Bill Werner, who said that Islam is basically a political movement wrapped in a religion. And the stats play it out. Look, about 8 years ago, Pew reported that 20% of Muslims in America say violence to further the cause of Islam is justified. I'm going to say that again. Pew Research, 8 years ago, said that 20% of Muslims in America say that violence to further the cause of Islam is justified. 8% say rarely, 12% say sometimes or often. Can you imagine?
Do the math.
Can you imagine if it was Christians? If this was, you wouldn't hear about anything else. It would be 24/7 news,
Yep.
on and on and on and on and on. Christian nationalism, and on and on and on. We gotta get educated, and we need to demand courage from our politicians to speak truth in
And
this
from the
issue.
church.
Because it is a movement that is
Telling the
rapidly
church
growing.
It
is rapid.
And just educate people on things. You don't have to be ugly about it. Just say, here's what they stand for. Here's the ideals. Here's the implementation. Here's an example. Just go to countries that have Islamic law, and then that's it. And then you can, check out people's eyes. Hey, any questions or comments before we?
No, not really.
right,
That
let's
sticks
wrap.
out. But I just want to say one thing. I keep on seeing the word, tariffs slapped on countries, and I don't want to start a whole
Don't start
new talk.
now.
I know.
We didn't talk about
But-
the economy,
right.
but we'll do it next time.
We do, because this is going to continue. There have been just significant victories. It's just absolutely inarguable. This is now, I think, Nico, it was the 6th major deal. Trump's 4 or 5, really interestingly. And notice the strategy, if you go back to the first 5 culminating in the Japan deal. Remember, it was a big deal, $550 billion bucks of investment in the United States, no tariffs on U.S. goods. Think about that. Virtually everyone, Indonesia and Japan and a host of Pacific Rim nations, they were Asian nations culminating in Japan. He's now got he just owned Europe. What he's doing is he's boxing out China in the first 5 deals, and now he's boxing out Russia with the European deal.
Because he sent some nuclear submarines over
yeah.
there. So that's another issue.
But to see the headlines again that he's slapping tariffs on, that's the headline, not
no,
the
not
money that he's
maybe
bringing
next
in.
time we can talk about
Right,
the economic
right.
report, because there was some information I wanted to ask George about in there. There was some good stuff. There was some
Like
not
the
so good
labor
stuff.
secretary
And everybody's
being
wondering about the
fired.
jobs, and that
Yeah.
actually vindicates Trump.
Yeah.
Well, and then,
Okay. We're going to talk about that
We'll
next
talk about
time.
that next time, guys. Look, guys, thanks for joining us. We're always going to ask you to share this with someone you think may benefit from these conversations. We hope you enjoy them as much as we like having them. And also, if you're a business owner and you want to be a sponsor, regular sponsor, that'd be great. We're always trying to expand, do different things. And so we definitely need help. If you just want to donate, you can go to sidebartv.com. It would definitely be helpful. But on a regular sponsorship, contact us, and Karen can reach out to you and talk to you about that opportunity as well. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.